Welcome back to the poker vlog. This is episode number 314. For this one, we're playing a 5-10 session at Bellagio, get into a ton of interesting situations. But before we get started, I've got a couple of announcements to make. The first one is congratulations to the first 5 winners of the Golden Passport giveaway. If you signed up using that promo code BRAD to ClubWPT Gold, the brand new site for US and Canadian players that's legal, where you can play for cash and other prizes, then you're eligible for this giveaway. I'm giving away $300,000 worth of Golden Passports. So these are worth $2,500 each, and they get you entry into a $5 million free roll this December at Wynn in Las Vegas as part of the WPT World Championship Festival. It's invite only, it's limited to 2,000 players, and it's $1 million for first. So I'm giving away 120 of these Golden Passports total. 95 of them are given away just randomly to people who sign up using promo BRAD. And the first 5 winners were selected. I announced it on Twitter and they received an email as well. But I'm giving away 10 Golden Passports each week for the next 9 weeks to someone who randomly signs up using that promo BRAD. In addition to that, I'm giving away 10% of all my poker winnings in cash game sessions for at least the next 6 months to people who sign up using my promo code. So take advantage of that. I'm giving Instagram updates. I played a session the other day, which was the first session as part of the 10% giveaway, and I won $21.75. So we drew a name, and Dmitry Sedelkov is the first winner of the 10% giveaway. He's gonna receive $217.50 in his ClubWPT Gold account. It's going to be deposited directly in there, and the site is going to be up and running fully in hopefully January 2025. So I'm really excited for that. That's the best thing that's happened to poker in the US in at least 10 years. In addition to that, I've got 2 meetup games coming up. The first one is going to be this Friday, October 11th at the Lodge in Austin, Texas. I'm going to be playing No Limit. Doug is going to be on property playing PLO, and we're giving away $10,000 worth of prizes. So hopefully I'll see you out there for that. I have more information in the description box below. And then October 21st, I'm doing a meetup game at Playground in Montreal as part of the WPT Championship Festival out there. So really looking forward to both those stops, and that's it. Let's go ahead and get started. We're getting right into it at Bellagio. You know the drill. We're battling it out in the 5-10 streets. We buy in for $2,500. That's the max. The session begins at 1:15 in the afternoon. I'm looking to get a big win for the vlog to help recover from a downswing that we're in the midst of. The very first hand, we're dealt ace-king offsuit in middle position. Under the gun raises to 30. We had to post $10 to be dealt in. I 3-bet to 100. We're coming out firing. Under the gun is having a tough time believing that we've got a monster right off the bat. He calls for 70 more. We're heads up in position. The flop comes queen 4-3 with 2 clubs. We don't connect. All we have is 2 overs and some backdoor straight draws. Under the gun checks. A lot of opponents tend to have a fit or fold strategy on flops. They either hit a hand and stay in, or they're looking for the first opportunity to exit. I take a stab betting 80 to maintain control of the pot or potentially win it now. Under the gun could have something like a flush draw or top pair. He calls. There's still a chance that we could currently have the best hand. The turn is the 7 of spades. It's a card that won't help us almost ever. Under the gun checks. We're not going to be able to get him to fold a queen. We can consider betting again to put pressure on hands like pocket 8s, 9s, and 10s, but ace-king has decent enough showdown value. We don't necessarily need to turn it into a bluff. I check back. The river is the jack of clubs completing the front door flush draw. Under the gun checks. This is too dangerous of a run out for us to fire at a high frequency when we've got very little removal to strong hands that the opponent could be holding. I check back. The opponent shows that he has 7-6 of hearts. He called the flop bet with a gutter and backdoor heart draw, then hit a pair on the turn. This may not seem like all that significant of a hand, and by itself, it isn't, but when I'm losing these types of pots regularly in which people are getting whatever cards they need to barely beat me for months, it begins to pile on and get frustrating. It's important to try not to let it affect you, but that's easier said than done, particularly if you're sharing the rough stretches with a YouTube audience. A few minutes later, we're dealt ace-king suited in the small blind. Big Slick has a chance to redeem itself. The hijack gets things started with a raise to 30. We're not going to be folding, we're going to be making it more. I 3-bet to 150. Despite seeing aggression from us, the initial pre-flop raiser isn't deterred. He pretty quickly goes to his stack to grab chips and make the call. We're heads up out of position. The flop comes 10-8-8 rainbow. We break again. We've only got overcards and backdoor draws. I slow down and check. This isn't a particularly good flop for us. The hijack bets 150. After playing passively on the flop with a check, we can't immediately give up. The opponent can have all kinds of king and queen high combos. Even if he has a pocket pair like nines, we'll have a decent amount of equity. I call to see if we can improve. It'd be nice if one of the very highest cards came out to give us top pair. The turn is the deuce of hearts instead. It's a blank. I check. If we face another substantial bet, we'll have to abort. The hijack slows down and checks back, giving us some hope that our ace-king could be in the lead because there's no reason for the opponent to be afraid to bet a strong hand when a deuce that changes nothing comes out. The river is the 7 of hearts, jack-9 is now a straight, and the backdoor flush draw gets there that we don't have removal for. I check. Ideally, the hijack will check back with everything worse so that we can minimally get to showdown to give ourselves a shot at winning. Nope. The hijack bets 600. With this type of sizing, he's saying that he's got something like a flush, 7s full of 8s, or air, that he's making a last-ditch attempt to steal the pot with. I'm tempted to call because our hand is kind of face up the way we've played this so far. It's too much money though. I fold. Good bet by the opponent regardless of what he has to secure the win. Losing 2 medium-sized pots isn't how we wanted to start, especially after getting dealt a couple of premium hands. 8 minutes in, we're stuck over $500. Next, we're dealt 10-9 suited on the button. Under the gun raises to 30. Under the gun +1 calls. I call to see a flop. We've got a lot going for our hand and we're in position against 2 opponents. The flop comes 8-7-3 rainbow. We've got an open-ender with 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw. It's not a bad flop for us. After getting no piece in either of the 2 other hands that we got involved in, I'm happy with the potential that we've got at the moment. Under the gun throws 50 into the middle. Under the gun +1 folds quickly. I'm content with the price. I paid more for less. I call to see the turn. We haven't gotten the runouts that we were hoping for previously. Maybe we can drill something now. The dealer puts out the jack of clubs, giving us the nuts. I'm ecstatic. Poker's way more fun when we're making hands. The opponent checks though. That's okay. We've got position and the ability to make sure that he's not going to see a free card. I bet 120. Under the gun is just like my baby mama when I'm carrying Henry in his heavy car seat and she's got the keys to unlock the car. He's in absolutely no hurry. Maybe there's some money for us to make. The opponent finally calls. Now we need a brick so that we can continue going for max value. The river is the 8 of clubs, pairing the board and completing the backdoor flush draw. It's one of the worst cards in the deck, but it still isn't a bad situation for us. The opponent checks. Probably would have continued betting on the turn for value if he had 2 pair or a set. Since he didn't, we can mostly rule out him having a full house. All that we need to be concerned about is the opponent hitting runner flush. He may have continued betting on the turn as a semi-bluff with clubs too, but his check call line would also be reasonable. He more likely has something like top pair or an overpair. We're not checking back. I keep up the intensity with a bet at 270. It's a little difficult for us to be bluffing because the jack is clearly such a good card for us. Not only can we have a straight, we can have all kinds of hands like jack 10 or jack 9 as well, but we'd possibly check back the river rather than bet those because it's tough to get called by worse with top pair and essentially no kicker. I'm hoping the opponent will have a hand like queens that he's not able to get away from after check calling on the turn. 30 seconds of careful consideration goes by, then the opponent folds. We don't quite make as much as we wanted. It's still a good feeling to have the nuts at some point in a hand and be able to bet for value. I haven't had a lot of opportunities to do that lately, especially on multiple streets. We keep the momentum alive with pocket aces in the small blind. A player in middle position raises to 30 in an attempt to help us build the pot. I appreciate his efforts. We're going to be increasing the price of admission. I 3-bet to 150. The big blind is supposed to play an incredibly tight 4-bet or fold strategy, even folding hands as good as pocket queens the majority of the time. In real life, no one is letting hands that good go. The big blind cold calls 150. When players do this, they'll often have hands like ace-king, ace-queen suited, pocket queens, jacks, and 10s. The middle position player folds. We're heads up, out of position against the cold caller. The flop comes 10-9-8 with 2 hearts. It's not great for us. Since we have removal to ace-king and ace-queen type hands, it's a lot more likely that we're up against queens, jacks, or 10s. We're currently losing to 10s. We've got the lead against jacks, but he'll have lots of outs to hit a straight or set, and queens are in rough shape against us. I check to keep the pot manageable. The big blind has the green lights to let it rip. He goes for it, betting 230. We didn't check our overpair to give up at the first sign of trouble. I call, not knowing exactly where we're at, but recognizing there will be a lot of bad cards that can come out. The turn is the 7 of diamonds. That's one of the worst ones because we're no longer beating pocket jacks. I check. If we face a bet, I'm going to give up because there's a strong possibility that we're deader than Bernie Lomax. Surprisingly, the big blind checks back. Maybe he doesn't like seeing 4 to the straight on the board either. The river's the 5 of hearts, the flush draw gets there. We have removal of hands like ace king and ace queen of hearts. I doubt the big blind would have cold called or 3-bet pre-flop with king queen suited or worse, so I rule out him having a flush. Still, we're not going to bet. I check. The big blind checks back right away. We reveal our pocket aces. The opponent mucks without showing. We win the pot and several hundred, which we'll certainly take after that flop and turn. The big blind's a nice guy. He tells me later that he had pocket queens, which is the main hand that I put him on after he checked back the turn. All of a sudden, we're even on the day. About a half hour later, we're dealt ace queen offsuit in the hijack. We're going to be opening with this one after it folds to us. I raised to 30. The opponent on our left, who cold called our 3-bet with the ladies, calls here. The button is a solid opponent who plays for a living. He's been aggressive with his 3-betting. He set up well to squeeze after seeing a raise from us and a call from the cutoff. The button 3-bets to 140. This is the second time that he's done this with the exact same action in front of him. I'm tired of his 3-betting. If we were playing perfect GTO strategy, we can call with ace-queen suited, but we're supposed to be folding ace-queen offsuit to a 3-bet. It's just easier to navigate with suited cards that'll give us slightly more equity and clearer decisions down the line. I can't get myself to fold though, knowing that the button is capable and willing to re-raise light. I call, which can potentially get us into trouble on some runouts. The cutoff folds, we're heads up out of position, the flop comes queen jack deuce rainbow, we've got top pair with the best kicker. At first glance it's good, but this is actually the type of flop that can get us into trouble if we're up against aces, kings, queens, or jacks, the type of hands that the opponent was representing pre-flop. I check to the button, 2 Broadway cards is good for him, he goes with a fairly large bet at 200. A check back would have made me feel a lot more confident, but this sizing could be utilized by the opponent with a variety of worse hands like ace-king, king-10, 10-9, and ace-x suited that only has backdoor draws. No way we're folding yet. I call. The turn is the 10 of hearts. I hate seeing it because ace-king is definitely a plausible hand that we could be up against that's in the opponent's range that isn't really in ours after we chose not to 4-bet pre-flop. I check again. The better players are going to exert maximum pressure in this scenario whether they've got Broadway or not, knowing we're either going to call or fold a lot to a bet on the turn. We'll almost never be check raising without the range advantage. The button bets 500. I'm not surprised by the play. We at least picked up the Broadway draw though, and the ace in our hand makes it less likely that we're up against ace-king. This is a tough decision because I know almost no matter what, we're going to be facing a jam on the river, whether the opponent actually has ace-king or not. I call, even though I'm already regretting the decision to stick around pre-flop. The river is the 3 of diamonds, it's a total blank. We don't improve. I check. It's a terrific run out for the button. He's well aware that our range is mostly capped at a set or more often 2 pair. He's not giving up. He jams for 1590 total. We have him slightly covered. Did he really just drill the turn card like he's pretending? I suppose that he could have pocket jacks, the 1 combo of pocket queens, or maybe queen jack, but I don't think the opponent would continue playing aces or kings this way, and I'm not certain that he would have bet so much on the flop with pocket 10s, he might have just checked back on the flop with 3rd pair and some showdown value. As far as bluffs go, I could see him having plenty of ace-x suited type of hands, king 10, maybe king jack or 10-9. We don't beat anything that the opponent would shove with for value, all we have is a bluff catcher. When that's the case, it's usually best to give up. I'm not doing that though. I call, the opponent isn't upset. That's because he's got ace-king. He indeed smashed the turn card after semi-bluffing on the flop. I'm annoyed with myself for calling pre-flop. I'm annoyed with myself for calling on the turn and the river, especially holding the ace of hearts. It's the worst suit for us to bluff catch with. This is the perfect example of how downswings cause me to get into more trouble because I slightly expand the range. Then I think of a few combos that the opponent might have that I'm beating to justify putting way too many chips in the middle. The run out doesn't make anything easier, but instead of losing $30 pre-flop and folding at that point, I lose over $2,400 to be buried on the day. I've got no one to blame but myself. I've known for the last several weeks that I need to tighten things up. I haven't been able to execute. I add on for 2400 and pick up ace-king suited under the gun during the same orbit. I raise to 30. Josh Ramatillo calls from the big blind. He's an aggressive player who got 4th in the main event a few years ago, cashing for over $2 million. I played with Josh a handful of times previously, and he's even been in a few vlogs. We're heads up in position against a player who never fails to make things interesting. The flop comes ace-jack-9 rainbow. We've got top. The big blind checks. It's a good flop for us. With all relatively high cards, we'll often be betting whether we have it or not. In this case, we have it. I bet 40 for value. Josh has enough of a piece to stay interested. He calls our bet, sending us to the turn. The dealer puts out the queen of clubs. I'm not happy with it because it's too coordinated with the flop. Multiple straights get there, as well as 2-pair combos that steal the lead from us. The big blind checks. If we bet, we might get check raised at a fairly high frequency, which would put us to a difficult decision. I check back to keep things simpler. The river's the 9 of diamonds pairing the board. Overall, it's not a great run out for us because the big blind will have plenty of trips combos. He's going to represent a monster with a massive overbet of 300. Again, I'm in the blender. Generally, this is just a bad situation to be in. One of the few positives is that there's a possibility he thinks we could both have an ace with kickers that don't play. We're splitting the pot since I would have bet on the turn with ace-queen and ace-jack, while I would have checked back with ace-10 and aces with lower kickers aside from ace-9. His big bet could be an attempt to get me off of a chop. If this were someone other than Josh, it'd be an easier fold. After checking back the turn for pot control, I'm not in the mood to let go here. One bad call on the river deserves another one. Otherwise, the bad call with ace-queen earlier might get lonely. I call. This time we win it. Josh has 10-7 of clubs. He had a gutter on the flop, then turned a double gutter and a flush draw, but missed everything. Like me as a 7th grader at the free throw line, the pressure of everyone quietly watching used to get to me, and I led the league in air balls.
Will you fold anything?
No.
600.
Call. Winning several hundred helps us get back on the right track. It's an uphill battle to get to the even mark today, though. We get moved to the main game where we're dealt 10-8 of clubs on the button. Under the gun raises to 40. We're towards the bottom of our range, but we've got a hand with potential. We can play in position. I call. The big blind calls as well. We're going 3 ways to the flop. Comes 7-6 deuce rainbow. We've got a gutter with 2 overs. The big blind checks. Under the gun is supposed to check at a very high frequency. He bets 70 though. His early position opening range shouldn't have connected well with this flop. It's better for us in the big blind. If we had a backdoor flush draw to go with our gutter, we'd consider raising. I call, ideally to play heads up in position. The big blind calls, all of us are still in. The turn is the 5 of spades, giving us an open ender. The big blind checks. Under the gun likes to play big boldly poker. He's surely supposed to check at some point, but he keeps blasting away, this time for 230. We've got removal to the nuts. I consider repping it with a raise. Under the gun, it doesn't have that much left, but the big blind has a large stack that covers us. I'm too concerned that under the gun may not fold if we semi-bluff, and the big blind could also still have something decent that he punishes us with if we get out of line. I call. We might have up to 14 outs. The big blind calls immediately, indicating that he's also on a draw of some sort. The river is the 9 of spades. We drill the 6th card straight, although the backdoor flush draw gets there as well. The big blind checks. Under the gun finally stops pretending that he's got something strong. He checks. I doubt that under the gun has a flush. We should have the winner. There's a high probability that the big blind has a straight that he won't want to fold. I target him with a large bet of 800. The big blind checks his cards. He doesn't have anything. He folds. Under the gun folds. It's a nice river for us. It allows us to take down the pot. We've recovered $1,000 since the low point. We still have $1,400 more to go. We're dealt ace-king offsuit on the button. A player in middle position raises to 30. We've been dealt this hand quite a bit today with mixed results. It'd be nice to add one to the win column with it. I 3-bet to 100. The big blind is supposed to play a 4-bet or fold strategy. He doesn't do it. He cold calls a 3-bet for 90 more. The initial pre-flop raiser knows I'm capable of occasionally 3-betting light, and he can rule out the big blind having aces and kings when he only flats at 3-bet. The middle position player 4-bets to 400. We weren't 3-betting light this time. We're close to the top of our range, and we're not backing down to a 4-bet. It's possible that we've got the same hand as the middle position player. We've got removal to aces and kings, making it half as likely that he's got one of those combos. I 5-bet to 1200. There's already a lot in the middle. Winning without seeing a flop would be a great outcome. The big blind folds. The action's on the initial pre-flop raiser and 4-better. If he actually has aces or kings, we're in trouble. I expect him to fold hands as good as queens now that he's facing a 5-bet because he's going to be up against ace-king, aces, kings, and on rare occasions, ace-5 or ace-4 suited. He doesn't do all that well against that set of hands with queens or worse. The opponent thinks it over for about 45 seconds and folds. He might have had ace-5 or ace-4 suited himself. We win $500 without making a pair. After losing with ace-queen early on, we've done well to come back and limit the damage. Our stack climbs up over the $4,000 mark. Here we look down at ace-10 suited in middle position. We're on a roll, looking to keep it going, and we've got a decent hand to accomplish that. I raise to 30. The button is an interesting character who does a handful of unorthodox things, like using small sizes to 3-bet when we're deep. He re-raises to 80. I don't hate it. A lot of the time it gives him control of the pot, and the play dissuades others from entering the pot behind him. We're going nowhere though. I call for 50 more to see a flop heads up out of position. It comes ace-8-3 rainbow. We've got top pair and a backdoor flush draw. I check to the pre-flop aggressor. He rarely misses an opportunity to c-bet, regardless of how many opponents are in or board texture. This is typically going to be a better flop for him anyway, with it being ace-high. He bets 120. Folding top pair isn't an option at this stage. I call, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried that we're up against ace-king again. That worry completely dissipates as the 10 of spades comes on the turn to give us top 2 pair. I check. The button doesn't bite this time. He checks back quickly. I'm not sure that he has anything. It's tough for him to have top pair or better. We have a lot of removal. The river is the 9 of clubs. We're not going to let this check through again. It'll be difficult for the opponent to call a bet at any size if he has something worse than top pair after I check call the flop with this run out. I target ace-king and ace-queen with a large overbet of 600. We saw Josh Ramatillo take a similar line against us as a bluff. We're doing it here for value. The opponent has the same expression on his face as my brother when he receives his 3rd sweater for Christmas. He's not happy to see it. He checks his cards one last time to see if they're the same ones he was dealt to start the hand. He's got nothing and folds. If we had gotten paid there, we'd be up several hundred on the session. Even without the button calling, we're only down 200 at the moment. We've made a massive comeback now that the cards are cooperating. A few hands later, we're dealt king 10 suited in the big blind. My good friend Kevin Colenso raises to 30 from under the gun. Under the gun +1 calls. We've got a hand that's decent to 3-bet squeeze with, but we'll call the majority of the time. I call for 20 more to see a flop out of position against 2 opponents. The flop comes jack 4 deuce all spades. We've got the second nuts. I check to set the trap. We'll be putting in the check raise if we get the opportunity. Under the gun bets 60. Sorry Kevin, this is going to be painful for you. It's going to feel like your entire family went to Paris and left you alone while the wet bandits are about to break in to try and steal all your stuff. It looks like another crew is in there first, attempting to take from Kevin. Under the gun +1 raises to 170. This is a wild setup considering what we've got. We're obviously not folding, but any action that we take is going to look extremely strong. We may not even have the best hand either. I cold call the raise. This has to be setting off alarm bells. Kevin calls for 110 more though. He might actually have the nuts, or at least the ace of spades. I know his game well, and he's not staying in there without a clear path to victory. Still, I'm mostly pretty confident that we've got the best hand. The under the gun +1 player is a wild card who might be drawing dead, and Kevin likely would have considered re-raising with the nuts. We just need a clean run out with some blank cards. The turn is the queen of spades, putting a 4th spade on the board. It's an absolute nightmare turn, other than the fact that we pick up the royal flush draw. I check, knowing there's a high probability that we're no longer best. Maybe we are though. Kevin checks. Perhaps he doesn't have the ace of spades after all. Maybe he just has a set. Under the gun +1 is concerned that he's beat after his flop raise got called in 2 spots. He checks back. The river is the 7 of hearts. It's a blank. We're in a weird situation in which 4 of the 5 highest spades are all accounted for, so if we bet, it's tough for us to get called by the 9 high flush or worse. If we check, we're going to feel obligated to call any reasonably sized bet with the second nuts, even though the opponents will likely check back all worse hands than ours. I make a small bet of 200 to try to get some value from an opponent who can't part ways with whatever they've got. Kevin isn't able to part ways with his hand. He raises to 600. There's almost no chance that he's doing this without the nuts when he has 2 opponents on this board with all the action on the flop. Under the gun +1 folds. I named my price. Now it's time to get out.
So lucky.
Kevin shows what we suspected. He has the nuts. It was a good flop for him with top and a strong draw. There weren't too many spades left in the deck. but he smashes one the first chance he got. We at least don't lose too much on the river. In this one, we're dealt ace-9 of hearts onto the gun. We're going to be playing all suited aces from early position. I raise to 30. Player in middle position calls. Our boy, who's famous for 3-betting to 80, 3 bets to 80 from the hijack. It doesn't accomplish a whole lot. I call for 50 more. The player in middle position is getting the kind of deal you'd normally only find at big lots. He also calls. We're going 3 ways to the flop from out of position. It comes queen 8 deuce with 2 hearts. We've got a flush draw with 1 over and a backdoor straight draw. I check. Middle position player checks. When you're batting 1,000 with c-betting, you really don't want to mess up that stat line. The hijack stays consistent, betting 100. Calling and raising are both good options. Against someone who c-bets relentlessly and might have a wide range, I prefer taking the more aggressive approach. I raise to 300, giving us the chance to win without making a real hand. The middle position player folds. The hijack might be stronger than we initially suspected. He isn't giving up. He calls for 200 more. Our plan doesn't work out as well as we'd hoped. It's time to channel that guy who's always in your games that hits whatever he needs. You know who I'm talking about. The turn is the jack of hearts. It gives us the nuts. We're in a dream spot. As long as we win this pot, we're unstuck for the day. I bet 530 to take the opponent to Value Town. I'm hoping that he won't believe that we have a flush after check raising the flop. We had to have been bluffing at some point since the turn changes the nuts so much, yet we continued firing. I might have made a mistake by betting large when we have the pot locked up. The opponent is scared and folds. Gordon Gekko's wrong. Greed is bad. Maybe we could have gotten called or induced a bluff raise if we bet small, but we still win several hundred. The beginning of the day didn't go according to plan. It's not about how we start though, it's about how we finish. We've climbed all the way out of a 4-figure hole. We're up, and it's time to head home. I played 6.5 hours today. I won $145. That big hand with the ace queen that I should have just folded pre-flop is a frustrating one. I still need to work on some things, still need to rein it in a little bit, but happy to overcome something tough like that mentally and to come out with a victory. So that part is good. That's it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe buttons. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you. I've got some big wins coming up, guys. Don't worry about it. I know that I haven't been playing as well as I would have liked. By the way, this is Parker. This is my neighbor. He just made me a bracelet. I put it up there on the shelf. But yeah, he watches the channel, and I thought
I play a lot of poker.
Oh yeah?
I do. Yeah, my dad taught me how to play Texas Hold'em.
Oh, awesome. Okay, cool. Well, thanks a lot for the bracelet, man.
You're welcome.
And don't forget to sign up to ClubWPT.com so that you can have a chance to win one of those golden passports that I'm giving out. I'm giving away $300,000 worth of golden passports, and then I'm also giving away 10% of my winnings for each poker session that I play for those of you who sign up to ClubWPTGold.com using promo Brad. And then I've got the meetup games coming up. The one in Austin, Texas at the Lodge, that'll be Friday, October 11th. And then also October 21st in Montreal at Playground. So I'm really looking forward to those. Thanks a lot, Parker, for being on the channel. Thanks for the bracelet, dude. And good luck to everybody. Stay safe, and see you guys next time. You wanna give him a Bradley wave, signature Bradley wave? There you go, nice. Come get your Bradley dollars. WPT Global and I have teamed up to send you, the viewers, to the WPT World Championship event in Las Vegas this December. We'll be running 6 Bradley Dollar tournaments on WPT Global, in which the winners will receive entry into the record-breaking 1K WPT Prime event, an invitation to play a private sit and go with me, in which the winner will receive a 10K seat to the WPT World Championship, and of course some Bradley Dollars to come out to Las Vegas. But Brad, what if I'm no good at poker, you say? Don't worry, we'll also be randomly choosing 2 players that deposit using my bonus code BRAD on WPT Global from now until November 15th. You can see how to do this in my pinned post on Instagram. For more information, check out the link. Come and get your Bradley dollars, and I'll see you at the World Championship event in December.